The highest level of leadership is about building legacy, lifting others, and winning the inner game. Jason Bogle lives that truth every day. As co-founder and senior partner at Bogle Law, Jason's helped build one of Ontario's most respected community-centered firms, delivering the client-first service, strategic excellence, and leadership that define the very best in Canadian law today. But for Jason, the journey isn't just professional, it's personal. He knows that in building a career, a firm, and a future, the greatest obstacle you'll ever face is yourself. This is the Other Canada Podcast. I'm so excited to be sitting here with you today.
I am blessed and honored to be with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Are you ready to be cross-examined today?
I never liked the idea of being cross-examined. It's a interesting position to be in, but I am open to being vulnerable and talking about everything.
Yes, that's beautiful. Before we jump in, what does the audience need to know about you to understand your legacy, to understand your business, and to understand Jason Bogle?
Well, I grew up in Scarborough. I had two brothers, an older brother, Keith Bogle, and a younger brother, Jeffrey Bogle. And we were the three children of Keith and Yvonne, and they came from Jamaica. One of the important things to understand about Jason Bogle is that I grew up in an environment where my parents encouraged me to serve the community. We grew up in Morningside and Old Finch. And so as a young person, I was always dedicated to my church life. I was end up being an altar boy till I was like 18 years old.
Amazing.
And then my parents encouraged me to be a very strong advocate in school. So they always encouraged me to do extracurricular activities like soccer, basketball, student council work, and community work. And so after I had left Toronto and gone up to Ottawa, I went to Osgoode Hall Law School, and I figured out different ways of serving the community, mostly by just being a lawyer and focusing on criminal and civil law, just because of the unique circumstances that we all grew up with in the early 90s and early 2000s. I think the environment itself pretty much helped mold and direct where I thought I was going to go with my life, and more importantly, I think it helped inform me about what I think is important for not just our community, but the overall big community that we're a part of. So I think that's what people need to understand, that it's a culmination of not just my own desires, but a history and legacy of what my parents kind of poured into me and my family has poured into me. So that's who I am.
That's a great foundation. It sets the context in a very beautiful way. And it sounds like you come from a very strong foundation in terms of your parents having a vision for your future.
It's funny. They were Jamaican, and they came from a very strong will and resistance. And I think it was very interesting growing up in Toronto at the time, because in Toronto, they used to have this perception of Jamaicans. There was the Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, which most people don't know about now. I think now it's Post Media. But back in the day, the Toronto Sun was a major news outlet that used to give opinions about what they felt Jamaicans were like. And, it was how they informed the general public of how to address Jamaicans when they met them. And I think what was very important for my parents to kind of push and to encourage about us as siblings was to make sure that we always walked with a certain level of pride, a certain level of, education and respect, because, although some people may have perceptions about you, there is nobody that can change how you carry yourself and what it is that you give to the general community. So that was important. And, when it comes to Jamaicans, you can't tell us anything. It's like we
So
know,
true.
we walk with a certain pride that is just, it's amazing. And then being Canadian and just seeing how the overall Canadian environment kind of welcomed us and how we all kind of banded together when we were growing up, dealing with the snow and dealing with the elements and the environments. Everybody kind of learned that it was important to serve and not to be selfish or isolated, and to see your other fellow Canadians as extensions of yourself and your own culture. So that was a part of the legacy.
That is huge. And, I think on this podcast, it's called The Other Canada because it is through our lens, right? And it is important for us to have that vision for our future, for us to understand who we want to become, right? And not being tied to the past. Before we, or if it is tied to the past, it's to ensure that it's a narrative that we're creating and we're defining. Right. You shared a little bit about the history of the Bogle name and how that led you into law. Can you share a little bit about that with the audience? Yeah,
it's not a well-known fact, but, back in the days when there was a fight for independence, there was a colonial control over the islands. The first to lead an actual rebellion against that type of control was the Haitian community. And after Haiti had defied France, Jamaica was in its own upheaval. And, my great-great-grandfather was a part of that. He was a landowner, Paul Bogle. He was a landowner that was educated and sought to make sure that his fellow citizens were also treated as equals. And unfortunately, the rebellion of Mormont Bay is a highly recognized rebellion that happened in Jamaica. And that was a rebellion where, unfortunately, people of color were being killed and being punished unjustly. And him, with the support of his local parish, led a rebellion that kept the English out of Mormont Bay for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then, unfortunately, they had gotten onto the land, and my great-great-grandfather fled into the mountains. And there was a little song that Paul Bogle, Bob Marley sung about it.
Yes.
Remember what they did to Paul Bogle, which is that, unfortunately, he was sacrificed to go down and stop all of the killings that were happening inside of Mormont Bay. And so he was hung in the center and he was lynched, but his family survived. But unfortunately, fortunately, he was able to write a letter before he had died to the Queen of England. Okay. And when he had done that, the Queen of England was so moved by his writing that she had removed the colonel that was in the bay for the purpose of showing the Jamaicans that this type of atrocity would not continue. And shortly thereafter, they had arranged the freedom of, the granting of independence of Jamaica. And so even, I think almost about 10 years ago, they had put him on the $2 bill. And I still have that $2 bill to this day. But my parents always encouraged me growing up to educate myself and to, be a person that spoke out on behalf of those who could not speak out for themselves. So that became a really strong point of me growing up in Scarborough and going to Ottawa, and then eventually coming back to Toronto when I opened up my practice after graduating from Osgoode Hall Law School.
Phenomenal. Like, big respect to your great-great-grandfather in every single way. First of all, for him making it onto the currency, right? But also, he gave a different type of generational wealth because his legacy is alive within you and has informed your life, which has in turn informed the destiny for many different Canadians through, who you're representing, as well as the mentorship and community work that you do.
You're absolutely
So let's go deep into that.
Yes, I've always found it important to do mentor work. I've always found that whether or not I was working with the YMCA through Camp Olympia, or doing volunteer work with Leaders in Action, or moving up and going out and speaking at events, or dealing with young minds that want to become lawyers, I always thought it was important for me to figure out a way of giving back.
Yeah.
And so what was also important was the importance of educating them about the realities of what we grew up with. I've always find that nowadays people are so concerned with the convenience of information, but they don't value the integrity of the information, like the preservation of what it used to be and what it used to be like. And so these stories we don't always communicate. And I think that's important. I think it's important that we, as the leaders of the community now, we figure out ways like this podcast to tell people what our stories are, what the legacy is of those who had come before us, and not to be silenced on those issues. Because if we don't tell the next generation the battles that we have surmounted, then they will find themselves open to those type of problems moving forward. Or they may not even know that they're being misled. And so these are important things that, giving back and having these type of conversations help to inspire other people. So I always found that it is part of the legacy to make sure that we are honest about what has happened before, what it is that we have gone through, and where I think it is that we're going. And so, like this podcast is a great opportunity for us to discuss how did we get here? What are the concerns that will be moving forward? Because we're not to make the same mistakes of the past. We're not going to stay in ignorance.
Yes.
That's what I find to be important.
And what I really, what I'm taking from that, and what stuck with me is what you just said about not being silenced. It's so easy for us. We don't want to exchange our future. We might think that if we speak out about certain things, that it jeopardizes certain opportunities in the future. We don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
We want to create spaces of safety, right? How do you balance creating that safe space, maintaining your personal brand? Because, as a leader within the community, you need to maintain that, and you're working with a diverse audience, not just Black people.
Yes.
How do you maintain that while still speaking out? And what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe struggling with that right now? They want to speak out about something that's happening, and they're worried about how it can affect their personal brand.
No. It's a courageous walk, and to be perfectly clear on that point, I think it's important for everyone to understand that you have your own light to shine. And we have these songs that we're taught as kids, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You really have to. And you can't be afraid of what people will say that will diminish your light. Whether or not you have a personal conversation with yourself, with the God you praise, it's important for you to understand that you bring something to the table that should not be silenced. And what is also important to understand is that when you go and put something out there in the community, whether or not you see how it comes back or not, it makes an effect. And so your personal brand that you're developing is one that is informed by not just what you want, but it has an effect on those people that you don't even know how it affects them. So I've always found that when it comes to giving your own your own spin on things, you can get discouraged because you feel that other people don't see your perspective, or you can get concerned that maybe a different community doesn't see what you're trying to do. But you got to have that courage to keep pushing forward. As an anecdotal story, I was one of 6 people of color in my graduating class of Osgoode Hall Law School. And when I opened up my own law firm, there was only a few of us that had the courage to do so. Shout outs to Tanya Walker. She opened up Walker Law, and it is a fabulous boutique law firm here in Toronto. And I have to say that seeing her going out and speaking about opening up her own law firm, doing and getting into rooms that we didn't normally get into, and knowing that she had the courage, like myself, to go into courtrooms, different rooms, and speak the truth about or perspective, and then still serve the overall community was important because she never lost her identity. Neither have I. And so we can't be afraid that we're going to have to capitulate to other people to be seen. And know that even if you don't know where your future business is going to come from, or where it's going to, when it's going to hit, be authentic. Be that person that is standing on principle.
Yes.
And then as you do that, people will recognize that your consistency and the urgency that you bring to whatever it is that you're producing attracts so many. And it attracts people for the right reasons.
It builds trust.
Because you have the integrity, right? And so
Yes.
people just want to be around that. And eventually they will catch on because you're moving the pendulum in the right direction, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm seeing as well is that for you, it's not just practicing law.
Yes.
It's about not only building a business, but also pushing the community forward in so many different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to, what I've always found is that when you get still and you recognize that there is a need in your community, you will start to evolve your purpose based on what you've been able to accomplish, and then what you see are still ways of improving. And it's not just improving the community. What you're doing is you're improving yourself.
Yes.
And so you find that you're constantly going through re-education. You're constantly figuring out ways to pour back into other people, but you're also figuring out ways to expand yourself. And what your first perspectives were, you realize that if you learn from other people and you figure out where it is that their needs are, you yourself become the solution.
Yep.
And so you figure out that it's more than just, figuring out how to make your business better. You realize that you as a person is becoming better. And then you figure out better ways of serving other people. And then you realize that's your legacy.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you spoke about that in Canadian Lawyer magazine.
Yes.
You spoke about the concept of overcoming yourself.
Yes.
So I want to take a pivot in our conversation to there.
I can't believe you found that article.
It's a great article. It's a great article.
I wrote that like 15 years ago.
It's a great article. Yeah. There's still gems in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I wanted to double click on that today.
Yes. Okay.
For future entrepreneurs, people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs, or even people who are on their entrepreneurial journey right now,
yes,
what is the advice that you would give in terms of how to not only overcome yourself, but to take care of yourself?
So double clicking on that article, I wrote that article after I had this beautiful conversation with my mother. I had told her that Canadian lawyers wanted me to write an article about opening up my own law firm and how I felt about it. And it was called Alone in a Crowd. And the reason why I wrote that was because, as I told you, I was one of 6 people of color that was in my graduating class. And I felt like I was friends with so many different people, different communities, and yet I still felt alone. I felt like there were challenges that were in front of me that they didn't really translate or were easily understood by the other people that I had graduated with.
Yeah.
And so I started to find that I was looking for some sort of a mentor or somebody I could lean on. And then after speaking with my mother, she was like, you got to look inwards. You really got to figure out that these solutions, if you pray about it, it will come to you. Like it will reveal itself. There's nothing that is before you that will stop you from what is going to happen to you, what is meant to come to you. And so there was just a reinforcement of resilience that I started to understand. Like no matter what the tribulation is, that if I figured out that there was a means of moving forward, that eventually, no matter what the outcome was, it was going to work out for my best. And so I came up with a mantra after that article. It was that there was no other option but to succeed.
Wow.
And that...
Can you say that again? So there's no other option. Why that mantra?
Yeah. There's no other option but to succeed, because that mantra was that how we define success is interesting. I used to think that success was about gaining money or gaining notoriety or whatever, but success is something that you define for yourself. It's something that you can be successful even if you have no monetary value to it. It's success if you go and have a moment with somebody else and you walk away with more than what you came with. You've learned something. You've brought something into yourself that you didn't have before. You've evolved as a result of that experience. And so I came up with that mantra in that article. It was about learning that no matter what your experience is, you will be successful in moving forward and learning and evolving and becoming a better servant. I've always found that the best leaders are those who know how to serve their communities.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so,
and you can feel the difference.
You can feel it.
It is or it isn't.
Yeah. And the community knows who their real leaders are. And no matter what, you're the head, not the tail. And so no matter what, you've realized that how people pour into you and how you pour back into them defines your leadership. And it's always a success if it's done properly, if it's done honestly, and it's done with integrity. And so if you say you're going to do something, be a person of your word, get it done. And then you move forward.
So it sounds like this is a decision that you've made.
Yes.
Right? You're founded in that.
Yes.
Right? Your character is strongly rooted in that.
Yes.
Was it always like that? Have you gone through, like, what trials, what tribulations, what challenges kind of formed that as your core value?
There has been a number of trials and tribulations over the years. Notably, when I was in my first year of practice, there was the highly publicized arrest that I had to deal with, where I was stopped for driving while black. And I was represented by Mr. Selwyn Peters, and essentially I was in a Lexus, and officers had come upon me, and they thought that I had...
So wait, I didn't see this when I did my research, but I remember hearing about this.
Yes. And so there was this court case where essentially I had brought a lawsuit because, we had brought a lawsuit because they assumed that after the Jane Creba shooting, that they were stopping a number of people of color that were driving a certain vehicle. It's high-end vehicles. And they assumed that because I was a young man at the time, I was like 25, and I had a very nice vehicle.
As you should.
Right, as you should. Right? But they assumed I had guns and drugs in the car, and they would not deviate from that perception. And it was unfortunate.
Terrible. Yeah.
And so it just happened to have occurred on my birthday, and it was difficult. And we brought a lawsuit as a result of that. And then shortly thereafter, my older brother, he was drowned in Kingston, Smith Falls, and it involved a friend or a colleague of his. And unfortunately, the police refused to investigate at the time. And so we found we were dealing with the criminal justice system and a number of other agencies, and we were finding that as a people of color, we weren't receiving the same type of service. And so that was very difficult on both myself and my family. And then having certain mentors that passed away. Marshall Sack was one of my good mentors. He was one of the most notable cross-examiners here in Toronto, a great criminal lawyer. I had a mentor by the name of Joseph Destiné. He was a great community activist.
Beautiful.
He passed away. And then, notwithstanding that, there was another of just business trials and tribulations that I had gone through.
At
And
what
each
point
one-
were you in your education or in your business at this point when all this is happening?
This is all happening as I become a lawyer,
Oh, wow.
as I'm navigating being a young Black face just introduced to the criminal justice system and the civil justice system. And so you're trying to define yourself because if you look young, and you realize that you're entering to these courtrooms and you're looking for them to give you that type of respect. You're battling preconceived notions, not just of what they may perceive of your client, but what they
Perceive
don't know
of
of you yet.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're new.
Yeah.
And so they have to get to know you. And so as time progressed, there was a number of challenges that had me, second guessing whether or not this was the right path, whether or not I was serving the community effectively, whether or not I was being the best version of myself I could to figure out how to serve the community and still make a living. And so that
question
was it.
for you.
Yes.
At this time, you said it was highly publicized,
Yes.
right? And I remember hearing about it.
Yes.
How did that affect your practice?
Ooh, it was a bit difficult.
A bit?
It was a bit difficult because, like any other highly publicized case,
Yeah.
there was perceptions.
Yeah.
People took sides. And so I remember doing an interview on CFRB 1010, and the interviewer was, quite incensed at the fact that I, as a lawyer, would take on the Toronto police because he figured that, I should be, speaking their accolades. I'm a part of the system. I shouldn't be one that challenges the system while, saying that the system is working. And I had to give him a perspective. I said, there were preconceived notions. There were prejudices that were within the system that nobody was talking about back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have this open dialogue about race back then, or people's unfortunate stereotypes that they may bring in to a job. And so at the time, there was a number of people that, in my opinion, felt a certain way that a person of color was bringing these issues to the forefront.
Yeah.
And so looking back now and seeing the generations that, the generation that is here now, have a different environment where they can openly have these conversations, that we now have discussions before even jury trials are called to see if people have inherent biases that they're bringing into a court
it.
case.
Yeah. So important.
This is the evolution. And so young people may not know that back in the days, their perceptions were that this is something so taboo, we can't even discuss it. But now we're discussing it.
Yeah. And it's so important not to be silent.
Yes.
Because it will bring about that change. And when I'm thinking back as to how I know about that experience, how I know about your experience. So my dad was an officer with Toronto Police. And as a Black man within that space, he was very vocal about the fact that he didn't agree with the unjustified carding of Black men.
Carding.
Right?
Yes, that was a big
And
issue.
It was a big issue. And
That's right.
even for him, it created a sense of discomfort within the force.
Yes.
But he felt that it was important to represent, the Black community as a member within the force. And I see that that's mirrored for you here,
Yes.
as a member of the legal system,
Yes.
saying, hey, we
Something
need to
to-
make some changes to what's going on there.
Your father was very courageous.
He was.
Because I'll be frank with you, being behind that blue veil and standing up back then about
Yes.
these issues was a very difficult thing to do. It was very hard to find that type of partnership
Yes.
with people in the force and those who were outside the force trying to say that these issues need to be addressed.
Yes, yes. And the impact of that, you can see it now within the force. Like you mentioned, when you're selecting a jury member, there's that information that's research that's being done.
Yes.
And similarly within the force, when my dad passed away, at his funeral, many officers shared just the impact that he had for them in their day-to-day life and in the structure of the way that the force, approaches being Black as an officer and the Black community at large. So it is so important just to underscore what you shared about why it's important to be courageous.
Absolutely.
Right?
The ripple effects go for generations. We don't know at the time of how our tribulations will affect the generations to come. But your father is one of those people that go and stand up and they realize that they may go through a lot, but at the end of the day, there will be results that come in the morning.
Yes, there will be.
Yeah.
So speaking for you, look at where you've come to now. Right?
I'm old. I
know it's just been a short time.
Yeah.
It's just been a short time.
It's 20 years. It's 20 years of practice.
I want to talk about that.
Yes.
You as an entrepreneur now.
As an entrepreneur, I've always had to define how I was going to move forward. As an entrepreneur, you had to realize that no matter what, you have to rely on yourself, and you have to figure out how you're defining yourself in the community at large. And so as an entrepreneur, it was always important to remember that no matter what, you are always going to rely and be challenged moving forward. So you never get too complacent. You never get too comfortable. And so you're always looking for, what is my plan? What is my succession plan? How do I work my day-to-day responsibilities? And how do I keep pouring into myself so that I realize that at the end of the day, I'm doing the best things that I can for others, but also for myself. And so being an entrepreneur can be a little isolating at times. So it can define you over time.
Yes.
It can define you over time. It challenges you over time, but you always are evolving over time. So never figure that the road of an entrepreneur is one that is set, that you can just simply sit back and just watch things come to you. You always have this fire in you that you have to keep stoking, because if you keep stoking that fire and you don't let it go out, you're going to be perfectly fine.
So I think specifically as a lawyer who owns a practice, there's a lot of, I imagine, in terms of the mental game.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of trauma that you're experiencing in terms of other people and what they experience.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you do, and what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about going into the law practice? What should they be doing to take care of their self?
Right. So as an entrepreneur, you have to take time for yourself. You'll never have time unless you take time for yourself, and you have to put it into your schedule. I learned from someone very close to me that having a schedule and putting in time for yourself helps the entrepreneur navigate not just their demands by other people, but also puts time available for yourself. And if you have to have one skill set, it's basically know where your boundaries are.
Okay.
Know where it is that you will say, it's this far that I will give, and then this far I need for myself. And so, I've had a number of trials being an entrepreneur, but I think what was the most helpful of my trials is knowing that after a big trial, what was always interesting is how you recovered from it.
So how do you recover?
Right. And so how you recover is you realize that, whether or not you have to go on a vacation or you need to stay in bed and, binge watch Netflix for a whole series that everyone's been telling you about.
Unapologetically, too.
Unapologetically. I just say, I need my time. You realize you have to pour into yourself. You'll need to renew yourself, no matter what that trial is. And there's nothing wrong with planning it in advance. Don't play catch up. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to do it when I feel burnt out or at the time of when I've given so much and I've never taken the time to take a vacation or go for a massage or spend time with my friends or laugh or take my personal time for just me. Being an entrepreneur is knowing that you are not relying on other people to define when you have your happiness. And so... Can
you say that again? That's big.
All right. So...
That's big because you're serving. Yes. You talked a lot about serving.
And that's what makes you an entrepreneur. But, you're not relying on someone else to point out when it is for you to be happy, when it is the time for you to go and pour back into yourself. So what's so important about being an entrepreneur is saying, I'm organizing my life. And here's the thing, my father, bless him, he was an engineer.
Okay.
But when I believe it was Maroney was in power, they allowed a lot of U.S. companies to go back to the States without paying pensions.
Okay.
And so he had to go back to school. And so when he went back to school, he couldn't find a job in his own profession, and he became a taxi driver, became known as Mr. Scarborough.
Beautiful.
From Able Taxi. And as an entrepreneur, he said to me, he's like, listen, never rely upon somebody to define your pension or how you're going to take care of your family moving forward. He's like, when you become a lawyer, make sure you're investing in your future and what your legacy will be and how you're going to be able to take care of yourself and your family.
So what does that look like?
So for me, it was owning property. It was making
That's
sure.
a gem.
That's a gem. I had a privilege of renting space from a gentleman by the name of Greenberg at Eglinton and Mount Pleasant. And this gentleman was a great businessman. He told me how he had owned property from Mount Pleasant all the way to Yonge Street. And his vision of building up that area kind of helped inspire me and say that he's like, I and my family have owned all this property. And, it was important for me to pass this on to my daughter. And then when I was listening to him, I recognized that I too want to do exactly what he was doing. I want to pass something on to my daughter. I want to pass something on to my son. And so I realized owning property is important because we need spaces where we can feel comfortable. And if we're constantly not owning spaces that we don't feel comfortable, we're only renting it, then we are always behind the eight ball. So that was what was important, to own property, to figure out how to be entrepreneurial, have my own sense of income, and know that if I ever wanted to have control of my environment, I didn't have to answer to anybody. I knew that as long as I was carrying myself with a level of integrity, there was always going to be a room for me to create and to be of service, because that's what had defined me from the very beginning. And most entrepreneurs realize that whatever they're creating that to serve, right?
Yes,
so that
yes,
people
yes.
have something that they didn't have before. But when they get it, they realize that they evolve as a result of it.
It's also a continuation of Paul Bogle's legacy, like owning property,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so that's beautiful.
It's interesting because it was something that I learned in history class. It was almost as though that when they challenged or they would try to devalue people of color, one of the ways they would do it is by saying that they didn't own property. And, they would consider people of color property. And then there was this whole paradigm around property when you looked at the law.
So interesting, yeah.
And so you started to realize that, if you have property, then it's almost like a shield to...
And you flipped it around.
Yes,
yeah.
Right? And so that's why it became important. And then, you start looking at your friends who are in banking and finance, and then you realize that now it's not just about property. Now it's about financing, being able to fund that property. And so all these elements start to intercede, and then you start to realize, well, how does my community need to be served? And then as an entrepreneur, you can educate them not only about these issues, but you can also provide them the space and the tools to become property owners or to become entrepreneurs or speak on great podcasts like this, Tiff. So
Beautiful, beautiful. No, and that's what it is, whether it's physical property, digital property.
Yes.
I think what you're saying is so important. Ownership
yes,
and being able to say, I own this, is so important to generational wealth.
yes,
And
absolutely.
sometimes it starts with a seed. You are funded by face.
Yes.
Maybe you can share a little bit about how that funding has supported you in your business. And this is not an ad. Okay. Really what I want to know is the truth. I really want to get to the heart of it. What element did it impact within your business?
So being a owner of property inside of Toronto, it's difficult to find those people in the community that are able to fund their spaces. Okay. And so when I reached out to FACE, it was a reach out to see if there's other people within the community that I could be of service to. Beautiful. And those that are looking for spaces that are owned by people of color that want to support the community and want to feel that there's spaces that are available for them. And so what was important is that we provided an avenue, a canal, so that they could travel and they can do whatever they needed to do. And so what I've always found to be important about programs like FACE is that it's important for the community to know that when it comes to funding, when it comes to the support, that there is organizations like this that can go out there and support them through these times of growth. And one of the things that I always found to be difficult when I was going out and opening up my practice was, and that was 20 years ago, when I was opening up my practice, there wasn't a organization such as this that existed that one could lean on, that one could talk to, that could have these conversations with, to say that, hey, by the way, I am aware that certain people are looking to do these things, and this would be something that's up your alley, or this would be something that we can collaborate on. And so it was a very isolated situation. It was like alone in a crowd.
So it brought you a sense of community as well.
Exactly. And, you know, it's so interesting because what FACE does is that it helps add that other element in what is needed in this Canadian mosaic for us as a community to thrive. And so what you find is that when you're by yourself and you're doing entrepreneurship in any of your fields without someone that you can go and say, hey, I want to bounce some financial questions off of. I want to bounce some legal questions off of. You feel isolated. You don't feel like you're supported. And so to build stronger communities, this is why coming together and knowing that we're connected, whether or not through FACE or through the legal system or through just the education system, it is important for us to interconnect and for us to support each other as we move forward. And we try to redefine what it means to be a person of color inside of Canada and to be successful and to constantly reinvest in the image that we have here. And so that's why it's been an important aspect moving forward.
Beautiful, beautiful.
No,
what vision would you say was brought to life through that funding?
I think
because you have to write, like when you're applying for the loan, you have to write a pretty clear statement of what you're envisioning. Yeah.
And so the vision has always been that there are spaces that are available for us to thrive. The vision has always been that to create a business that people know has either brick or mortar that they can go to, that there's going to be continuity, there's going to be legacy, there's going to be something that is not going to be fleeting. It's that we are investing so that the future will have access to our history or wealth of knowledge and or funding as we've had it, so that we don't end up like the generations that came before us.
And it's so important to have that brick and mortar.
Have to. Yeah. You have to. And you know, going back on it, you know, I encourage people to go out and speak to their parents. I don't know, before my parents had passed, and you spoke to your dad, I think what was important is hearing their stories, hearing how it is that it was for them to navigate by being in these professions and not having options or avenues of people to get support from. And so feeling that isolation and knowing that you're taking on huge issues like carding, huge issues like racial profiling, huge issues like ownership, just being able to own things. Because just remember, back in like the early days, it was difficult for certain people of color to move into certain neighborhoods. There was a bar. There was like certain realtors that would be like, oh, we're not going to allow you to move into these areas. And people don't remember that, you know? And so...
and it's still happening today. It might be more covert.
Yes.
But it is still happening today.
Right? And so, so just having that lack of mobility and saying, hey, you know, when somebody does something like that, is there an option for me to speak to a lawyer or to go to a realtor or make a complaint at this organization organization and say, I want that property. I want to be here. This is where I want. And then, you start to realize that if we don't have these conversations, if we don't talk about how they felt isolated and what we're doing now to do something different, and so that we're better off moving forward, so that the overall community, Canada as a whole, becomes better, right? It becomes the vision of what we always hoped it would be. When our parents came here, they were enticed by how Trudeau, and I mean Senior Trudeau, not Junior Trudeau, how he basically, Pierre was like, listen, the community of Canada is open to the world. We want everyone to come. We have opportunities here. And so what that looked like to so many people from so many different backgrounds is that this is a country of freedom and of a mosaic where everyone can rely on everyone. And this is not just during a particular time, but overall, like, we're creating something that is so unique, that is so different from the United States. It's not a melting pot. It's actually a sharing of ideas and principles. So I think that that type of mentality is what is encouraged through things like FACE, and essentially realizing that they're providing another avenue of support that we didn't have before. And that's the legacy of it, that we realize that our fathers did not have this type of support. And if they wanted to do this, they wouldn't know where to start. And so now we're out here. We're telling everyone, faces here. We're telling people that, hey, if you have these opportunities or you have these ideas, we have an opportunity to invest in you and to see you flourish, because we want to create a legacy. And that's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. It is. And the interesting thing is I was, scrolling through the Face Instagram, and I was seeing that a lot of people have questions. They're wondering, hey, are these loans going to real people? How does it work? So it's really powerful to hear you sharing, what your experience was and why it's important for us to have access to these types of resources.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if the resource doesn't exist, that individual who has that larger legacy, wouldn't be able to bring it to life in the same way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about legacy.
Yes.
Actually, no, let's take a step back. I want to close that off in terms of entrepreneurship. Aspiring entrepreneurs, what are 3 things that you wish you knew before going into entrepreneurship?
3 things I wish I knew before going to entrepreneurship. Number 1, I would say that first thing is know that you're going to have a number of challenges that you cannot predict. So don't be committed to a specific plan. Have a plan, but know that you're going to have to pivot, right?
Okay.
And don't be afraid of that change. When I say my first rule is know that the pivoting will occur, is that I wish I knew that it would require me to pivot a lot. And I didn't know that it would require me to pivot that much, but it did require me to pivot a lot.
Gotta stay agile.
Yeah, you gotta be agile. You gotta be nimble.
Yes.
Second thing, I think, I think I would have been better served if I knew that I needed to make more time for myself.
Self-care.
Self-care is so important. Oh my goodness. I think fighting burnout was a big thing early on in my career. My brother had passed in 2007. And so by that time, it was I was fighting a bit of burnout. I had to rely and I had to reach out to a number of my colleagues for support. During that period of time, I was fortunate enough to come across Marshall Sack, who, while he was dealing with his own issues with his own law firm, he made time for me and my family, opening up his home and just simply being there to help support me during a very difficult time. And so, I think knowing that burnout can happen and making time for oneself, I think is an important issue that all entrepreneurs should know. And then third, I would say that understanding your game plan. I would say that financially, learning the overall game that is occurring in Canada. So don't be in your own little world. Realize that certain things do affect you. Pay attention to what's happening in politics.
Vote.
Vote.
Can look back and tell them
Vote. Know what's happening in politics. Know what's happening with the banking system.
Yeah.
Know what's happening with private loans. Know how it is that all these issues.
So important. Yeah.
So just be cognizant that it's not just how you're serving your community in terms of what you're passionate about, but there's other things that may affect you that could affect you. And so be cognizant of that. Don't have blinders on, because you're more than just what you're passionate about. You have to be sensitive to other issues that are happening and other people, and have that type of that empathy of knowing that these other issues that are happening, other people are being negatively affected. And don't be so closed off that you're not empathetic, you're not compassionate about issues that are happening in politics, in financing, in just the global world.
Because it's so easy to be in our one zone of, just building the business. But there is a whole world happening around us that does inform kind of the growth of that business, right?
And when you're sensitive to that, you realize that when you have that type of compassion, it will come into your business. You'll become larger than what you thought, because you're now focusing on not just your passion, but you're cognizant of other issues that may affect those people that are affected by your passion.
Absolutely. So when you talk about generational wealth, right? And we said it wasn't just money; it's about legacy.
Yes.
You know, your great grandfather was on the $2 bill.
Yes.
And you're here speaking about him now.
Yes. Legacy.
How will people be speaking about you, and how are you ensuring that your legacy continues generation after generation? And what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to make sure that their not just financial legacy, but their legacy continues?
It's a big thing. I think the amount of time you spend with young people is how I think people will speak of my legacy.
Beautiful.
I think that speaking to young, inspiring lawyers, talking to people in the Black community that have dealt with certain marginalization, certain racism that they can't understand, or they don't know how it is that they're to move forward, because they feel that they've been hurt by these issues and they become stuck. And they were like, well, how did you move through it? How did you personally surmount these issues and not get bogged down with the pain of feeling that level of disrespect or being denied these doors? And I have to tell them, first is prayer. Second is telling, the next generation that when a door closes, several open up for you. And you cannot become so bogged down with the trauma that you don't open yourself up to the other doors that have now become open to you.
That's a big one right there. Not being bogged down by the trauma.
Yeah.
Because, I can only imagine being a Black lawyer in this landscape.
Yeah.
There's trauma that you can internalize. And what you're talking about is being able to transmute it.
Yes.
And refocus your energy into something else.
Take that and make it into your own and say, that's all right. I'm going to keep moving forward. And you figure out a way to reinvest and have conversations with those people that will go through these trials and say, I never let that issue define me.
Yeah,
I've always figured a way of moving forward, and it's not something that I will sit back and lament on. I will demand the respect.
It goes back to your mantra.
Right. Yeah. The success comes in different ways. And so there's no other option but to succeed. And you're absolutely right, Tiff. So I always try to tell people that if there's going to be an issue about my legacy, they will always say that Jason took the time to tell people what the truth was about his own experiences and what it is that I figured would be helpful in them navigating what issues I know they're going to be challenged with. And so that's been important. That's always been an important aspect. That no matter what, the young people, they get to see that, I had the benefit of really great parents, and I got to see how they supported the community. My house was the house where everyone would come over and,
love that.
right?
Yeah.
Play video games, eat a food, and do a thing, and dance in the basement. Slap on the furnace. But
Yes.
now I don't have the furnace for people to slap on, but I'll have the podcast to have a conversation, or
Yes.
I'll have the law firm that you can call and you can say, "Hey, I have a question. This is what happened. How can you help?"
Yes.
And so we give the best advice we can.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I want to go back to 2 places in history.
Okay.
Younger Jason,
Oof.
what would he need to know to equip him for the journey moving forward?
Younger Jason moving forward would have to remember that even though he got beat up as a kid and they called him a nerd, these things shall pass. And so, they may call you a nerd, they may call you awkward when you're growing up, but these things will pass. Don't be afraid to be unique. Don't be afraid to stand out. Don't be afraid to go and be honest about who you are. You come from a great family. You have certain principles. You do not have to run the streets and be involved in foolishness. You don't have to be afraid that these people are going to try to stop your light just because they don't know who you are. And so never let that define you.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
And then what about the Jason that was in the car in that Lexus?
Oh,
What would you say to that Jason?
I would tell that Jason, stay calm. All right. It looks bad. They may be disrespecting you, but don't lose heart. Because at that time, I thought that, my whole world was falling apart. I thought that they would never see me as a lawyer that was of certain reputation, or they would never take me seriously. And what's even worse is that I thought that at the end of the day, I had I had found myself in the worst scenario that my parents always never wanted for me. They never wanted me to see me arrested or felt less than. And so I was always protected. I was always watched over. Whether or not I was in Cubs or I was doing, my father was always there. And so here was a situation where he couldn't protect me.
Yeah.
And now it's possible that I could be arrested for something I didn't even do. And so now, I would have to tell that young Jason, just be still.
And
It will
imagine
work out.
how that was a setup
Yes.
for you to be an empathetic lawyer who understands that moment in a way that so many other lawyers just cannot, And it sounds like, just in my experience of everything that I've read about you online in this conversation, that it set a cornerstone for you to really, one, not be silent.
Yes.
And that not just being something you say, but it being a reality of who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's built your character in such a beautiful way in terms of how you mentor up and coming lawyers, right?
You're too kind. Yes.
So I think it's interesting how sometimes those moments when we're in it, we think it's the world ending, but it's really the foundation of the world being built, a new world.
It's so true. I don't want to get biblical on this one, but I just
Get into it.
Yeah, I really have to say that God really puts you in positions where you might see it as being put in the fire, but He will put you through the fire because you can manage it. And when you come out on the other side, it will draw you closer to Him.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So that He can get the glory.
Absolutely.
I love that.
But
I love
He
that.
always gets the glory.
Yeah. And then so how much does faith come into your business? And is that something that what are your thoughts on that?
Faith has become, an integral part of who I am. I mean, like I said in the beginning, I was a Christian. I studied. I was praying. I was in the church. I recently took my Shahada. I became Muslim. I've now started to pray 5 times a day. I realized that it's important that when it comes to having a conversation with God, it's important that people understand that, the more you have a conversation with God, the more mysteries of the world is revealed to you.
So true.
And so if you put him first, it's a beautiful thing. Like no matter how many losses you may think you have had, you realize that you've been put in these positions to tell these stories, to say that I was put through this so that I could draw myself closer to God. So I could keep praying. And then I realized that he brought me through this for a reason. And so now to he go the glory. So
absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. When we say the other Canada, it's all of the different elements of our identity coming together, right, to create who we are. And that does include our faith. That does include our race. That does include our gender. That includes the entire kind of tapestry. And the reality of our identity should not be silenced, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful mosaic. And, you know, it's, I guess on my spiritual walk, when when I lost my parents and I lost my brother, just getting out there and learning the different, spiritualities. I even went to a gutla. Wow. I got to study. I went to Bali. It's just a beautiful thing when you realize that having a level of prayer in your life helps to move you through these trials, unlike anything else. And so the books are great. You know, making money is great. Being able to connect and go to a party or go to a great restaurant is great. But at the end of the day, when you're in your house and you're by yourself, the prayer gets you to where you need to be. And it helps to renew you with what you need to get done. So absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we close?
I think that what Face is doing and, the opportunity to be here and talk on this type of platform is important. I think that as they tune in and they see the type of work that you're doing, I think it's important for them to understand that this type of connection, this type of community is what we hope they will continue moving forward. And so being able to connect over different lines from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, and coming together is what I want them to remember about this particular episode. Absolutely. That we're bringing different aspects together and that they can see it happening in real time and then know that they can do something moving forward similar to what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. And he's being very humble. Yeah. This is what I've noticed about the guests. They're being very humble. If you Google Jason Bogle and you see I would say to read that article that he wrote, you're going to get a depth of vulnerability, and I do agree. I think after people listen to this podcast, this specific episode, they're going to get a sense of why it's important to have a clear vision for your future and why you should make the decision that success is the only option.
That's right.
I think of, being able to overcome the inner world and your inner self so that you can be of true service to the community. And where can people find you so they can learn more from you? They can build with you. They can be a part of, maybe they can be mentored by you. That's something that you do.
We take on mentors every summer at the law firm. Mentees at the law firm. I'm at www.bogleslaw.com. Otherwise, I'm available online. I have a little Instagram page of Sack and Bogle Law, but I'm out here. I'm out here.
You're out here.
I'm out here.
You're out here. And I think your great-great-grandfather would be proud. Your parents would be proud.
Blessings.
Yes. And I know that we're going to take all these gems and add it to our stack of gems in terms of our generational wealth. And we're not just talking about money.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Other Canada podcast.
Oh, it has been a blessing. Thank you, Tiff, for taking the time and inviting me.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.